Yo, what's up? Boozy, my dude. What's up, bro? Bro, listening to that The Martian, that audiobook. I don't know, like I've been on my real study so much, like I haven't fucking read any nonfiction in a while. Like just a story. That shit was good as hell just to listen to that shit. Kind of made me wish I read it instead of have somebody else read it to me. But I started listening to The Alchemist, the audiobook The Alchemist. And that story was getting pretty interesting too. But I don't know, like it's been hard for me to pick up like any kind of nonfiction lately and just like read a story about you know characters that don't exist and shit like that. I don't know. The past longest I've just been anything I read, it needs to be educational for me. What?
The alchemist. No clue yet. And what do you do in Salem? He insisted. All right. The sheep will get used to my not being there too, to their conversation. He felt uneasy at the man's presence, but he had found the guide and didn't want to.
I think I listened. It takes a long time to read a book. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fast reader, but if I like a book, I'll just read that shit all day. Like, you know, I just I don't know. I could read a book in like depending on how thick, probably like 200, 300 pages. I can probably read that shit like 100 pages a day. Something like that. If I really ain't got shit to do, I can read a book in like a few days, or at the most a week. If it's really interesting and I really want to get into it, I can probably read a book in like a week. But if you never read The Alchemist, I know the story of this shit. I already started it, but they're cool as shit, bro. I mean, I listened to some back in the day. My aunt, she's a real big fan of reading literature in general, but she was living in Virginia and working in Northern Virginia and working in DC. So it's still like for her it was like almost a 2 hour ride in the morning. So she had like tons and tons of fucking audiobooks she would listen to. And a couple years ago she got me back into like listening to books, just mostly like when she's riding or driving. She doesn't really listen to a lot of music or shit like that. So she'll just listen to books. And I remember like a while ago I listened to a couple good reads. But I like to read, so I don't know. I always felt like I could read this shit myself. You know what I'm saying? Instead of having somebody else read it to me. Yeah, honestly, over the past couple years, I've been slowing down on reading. I've been getting a lot more paintings put out, but like as far as my reading, I'm still reading Blueprint from Black Power from last year. But that is like a 800 page book though. Shit. Oh man. 12-hour work shift, bruh. One more day of work tomorrow. And then I'll be off for 4 days. I don't know. I might do some overtime this week, not because I need it, but because a different department needs help, and they operate the CNC machines, where it's like, damn, I forgot what CNC stands for. But anyway, just like jigs and saws, they cut different patterns out in the material, and I don't know how to do that shit. So if they're willing to train me, I'll work overtime if I can get experience on a CNC machine. That's just, you know, once more experience under my belt. Something else new to learn. Something I can add to my resume. I might do that shit Friday. I ain't sure yet. I ain't signed up for it. I might, but I told somebody at work I might do overtime. They was like, "What? You gonna do overtime?" Like, yeah, I'm thinking about it. You don't never do overtime. I know, but that's what I'm thinking, yo. That shit'd be worth it, just the experience. You know what I'm saying? Or learning how to operate a different kind of machine. Hell, I might like that shit better than the fucking department I am and ask for a transfer. Yo, put me over in the machine shop, yo. And no, they make lockers, like school lockers and shit like that. So all the parts where all the hinges. So you start out with just like a flat piece of plastic, and the machine has to cut out the shape for the hinges, where the lock and the handle goes, and all that shit like that. So it's not something extremely difficult. I can imagine if you can operate a computer or a smartphone or some shit, you can probably operate a fucking CNC machine. That's all it is programming specifications into the machine and selecting the right size bit and or drill or whatever. So I can't imagine it being something that I wouldn't be able to pick up real quick. What up, big homie? Shit, what you doing? Where you at? You got it now? Well, you already bought it, or are you testing it? Yeah, I heard. Alright. My homeboy said he just bought a car. Another car. This motherfucker, I don't know, he a car fiend, yo. He got a 330i BMW. Then he got the BMW X5 or the X3. And then the other day I was fuck around with him, and we was chilling and shit. He all on the phone. I'm like, man, what the fuck you looking at? He showed me. I like cars, bro. Really? Oh man, I see this Mercedes, man. They only want 5 stacks for it. Let me find out this motherfucker went and bought that Mercedes, yo. He said he outside. I'm about to go see.
Bantam Doubleday Dell Audio Publishing presents The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, translated by Alan R. Clark. The boy's name was Santiago. Dusk was falling as the boy arrived with his herd at an abandoned church. The roof had fallen in long ago, and an enormous sycamore had grown on the spot where the sacristy had once stood. He decided to spend the night there. He saw to it that all the sheep entered through the ruined gate, and then laid some planks across it to prevent the flock from wandering away during the night. He swept the floor with his jacket and lay down, using the book he had just finished reading as a pillow. He told himself that he would have to start reading thicker books. They lasted longer and made more comfortable pillows. It was still dark when he awoke, and looking up, he could see the stars through the half-destroyed roof. I wanted to sleep a little longer, he thought. He had had the same dream that night as a week ago, and once again he had awakened before it ended. He arose and, taking up his crook, began to awaken the sheep that still slept. He had noticed that as soon as he awoke, most of his animals also began to stir. It was as if some mysterious energy bound his life to that of the sheep, with whom he had spent the past 2 years, leading them through the countryside in search of food and water. "They're so used to me that they know my schedule," he muttered. But there were certain of them who took a bit longer to awaken. The boy prodded them one by one with his crook, calling each by name. He had always believed the sheep were able to understand what he said, so there were times when he read them parts of his books that had made an impression on him, or when he would tell them of the loneliness or the happiness of a shepherd in the fields. Sometimes he would comment to them on the things he had seen in the villages they passed. But for the past few days, he had spoken to them about only one thing: the girl, the daughter of a merchant who lived in the village they would reach in about 4 days. He had been to the village only once, the year before. The merchant was the proprietor of a dry goods shop, and he always demanded that the sheep be sheared in his presence so that he would not be cheated. A friend had told the boy about the shop, and he had taken his sheep there.
To my arm around the corner. I'll be there in a minute. But, you know what a minute means to a black dude? I mean, I'll be there in 15 minutes. If you say 15 minutes, you always got to double that shit, you know? I'll be there in 30 minutes. Oh, that's an hour. It's cold as fuck outside, too. Fuck that. This motherfucker got some Mercedes or some shit, yo. I swear. This dude be too flashy with this shit. I don't know. I just always like domestic cars because they're fucking cheap to repair. I wouldn't mind having a BMW, but I would mind the repairs on that shit. A light go out, your headlight go out, it's fucking $40, $50 for a light bulb or some shit. Don't let some real shit fuck up. Some sensors or some shit like that, man. Fuck that. That's why I own 2 Chevys. They cheap and they cheap to fix. When I get that bread though, when I get that real bread, then I might buy me one of those old the M3s. I think that's what it was. That's what I'm talking about. That color people time. Them old M3s. I like them shits, yo. I get one of them old Johns. What the fuck am I looking for? Oh, that's my man right there. Yo, I'm coming up. Alright. I'll be back.
"I need to sell some wool," the boy told the merchant. The shop was busy, and the man asked the shepherd to wait until the afternoon. So the boy sat on the steps of the shop and took a book from his bag. "I didn't know shepherds knew how to read," said a girl's voice behind him. The girl was typical of the region of Andalusia, with flowing black hair and eyes that vaguely recalled the Moorish conquerors. "Well, usually I learn more from my sheep than from books," he answered. During the 2 hours that they talked, she told him she was the merchant's daughter and spoke of life in the village, where each day was like all the others. The shepherd told her of the Andalusian countryside and related the news from the other towns where he had stopped. It was a pleasant change from talking to his sheep. He went on telling stories about his travels, and her bright Moorish eyes went wide with fear and surprise. As the time passed, the boy found himself wishing that the day would never end, that her father would stay busy and keep him waiting for 3 days. He recognized that he was feeling something he had never experienced before, the desire to live in one place forever. With the girl with the raven hair, his days would never be the same again. And now it was only 4 days before he would be back in that same village. He was excited and at the same time uneasy. Maybe the girl had already forgotten him. Lots of shepherds passed through, selling their wool. "It doesn't matter," he said to his sheep. "I know other girls in other places." But in his heart, he knew that it did matter. And he knew that shepherds, like seamen and traveling salesmen, always found a town where there was someone who could make them forget the joys of carefree wandering. The day was dawning, and the shepherd urged his flock in the direction of the sun. The sheep never had to make any decisions. They were content with just food and water, and in exchange, they generously gave of their wool, their company, and once in a while their meat. "If I became a monster today," thought the boy, "and decided to kill them one by one, they would become aware only after most of the flock had been slaughtered. They trust me, and they've forgotten how to rely on their own instincts because I lead them to nourishment." The boy was surprised at his thoughts. Maybe the church with the sycamore growing from within had been haunted. It had caused him to have the same dream for a second time, and it was causing him to feel anger toward his faithful companions. He drank a bit from the wine that remained from his dinner of the night before, and he gathered his jacket closer to his body. He was grateful for the jacket's weight and warmth. The jacket had a purpose, and so did the boy. His purpose in life was to travel, and after 2 years of walking the Andalusian terrain, he knew all the cities of the region. He was planning on this visit to explain to the girl how it was that a simple shepherd knew how to read, that he had attended a seminary until he was 16. His parents had wanted him to become a priest, and thereby a source of pride for a simple farm family. They worked hard just to have food and water, like the sheep. He had studied Latin, Spanish, and theology, but ever since he had been a child, he had wanted to know the world, and this was much more important to him than knowing God and learning about man's sins. One afternoon, on a visit to his family, he had summoned up the courage to tell his father that he didn't want to become a priest, that he wanted to travel. "People all over the world have passed through this village, son," said his father. "They come in search of new things, but when they leave, they are basically the same people they were when they arrived. Ha! They climb the mountain to see the castle, and they wind up thinking that the past was better than what we have now." "But I'd like to see the castles in the towns where they live," the boy explained. "Those people, when they see our land, say that they would like to live here forever," his father pointed out. "Well, I'd like to see their land and see how they live," said his son. "The people who come here have a lot of money to spend, so they can afford to travel," his father said. "Amongst us, the only ones who travel are the shepherds." "Well, then I'll be a shepherd." His father said no more. The next day, he gave his son a pouch that held 3 ancient Spanish gold coins. "I found these one day in the fields. I wanted them to be a part of your inheritance. But use them to buy your flock. Take to the fields, and someday you'll learn that our countryside is the best, and our women the most beautiful." And he gave the boy his blessing. The boy could see in his father's gaze a desire to be able, himself, to travel the world. A desire that was still alive despite his father's having had to bury it over dozens of years under the burden of struggling for water to drink, food to eat, and the same place to sleep every night of his life. The horizon was tinged with red, and suddenly the sun appeared. The boy thought back to that conversation with his father and felt happy.
It's fucking crazy. My man got a Mercedes E500. It's a... What he said that shit was? It's a kind of older one. A 2006? A 2006 E500. Say, that shit got 126,000 miles on it. He only paid $3 grand for that shit, yo. Yo, that shit is all black outside with the fucking cream interior. Yo, that shit look fucking new as shit. Like, dude, how the fuck you find this shit for $3,000? He's like, just looking online. Some motherfucker in Jersey wanted to sell that shit. He said it was his wife's car. He planned on getting his wife a new car, but they had to sell the old one first. For $3,000? A Mercedes E500. Yeah, I paid more for my fucking truck than that shit. But once again, like, you know, for a tune-up and all that shit, man, that shit gonna cost you about $500 on that shit. The 01 M3. Yo, them M3s, yo, I just like them old. I like that body style on them shits, man. I'll get one of them shits. Damn. The E500, yo. Yo, that shit looks fucking super sweet, yo. I told him I only got one more day of work, yo. Well, shit, later this week, you gotta ride the fuck out somewhere in that bitch. It's a fucking V8 too. You gonna let me drive that shit? I want to get that bitch on the highway. Fuck that. I had a V8 one time, yo. I had the Lincoln. I had a 2004 Lincoln LS V8. That bitch moved. That shit had 160 on the dash. That shit was a gas guzzler, but that Lincoln LS, it was nice as shit. It was a nice ass car, yo. I said that shit had some speed to it too, man. Whoop, I used to push the hell out that V8. My man said he got the V8. Motherfucker got two. He got goddamn 2 Beamers and a Benz. Damn. Happy for him. That's that good shit right there. Come across a deal like that, yo. So he was like, son, I couldn't pass this shit up, nigga. I couldn't pass it up. It's a fucking V8. It's a V8. It only got 120,000 on it. Like, yeah, cause goddamn, I don't know. Damn, if I found a good ass deal like that, would I have got that shit? But once again, I be thinking about maintenance on that shit, yo. And there is the brake light is on in there. He's like, that ain't nothing but a sensor though. For the ABS, I think. It's like, I just gotta get that sensor fixed, and a headlight is out on it. That's why he came through now and still daylight out. He was like, shit, I'm about to go park this shit before it get dark. Go get the headlight tomorrow and get that sensor checked. You be in there. He said the dude told him he ain't even drive that shit in the last 4 months. The shit just been sitting in the fucking yard, just sitting there.
He had already seen many castles and met many women, but none the equal of the one who awaited him several days hence. It's the possibility of having a dream come true that makes life interesting, he thought, as he looked again at the position of the sun and hurried his pace. He had suddenly remembered that in Tarifa there was an old woman who interpreted dreams. The old woman led the boy to a room at the back of her house. The woman sat down and told him to be seated as well. Then she took both of his hands in hers. Very interesting, she said, never taking her eyes from the boy's hands. Then she fell silent. I didn't come here to have you read my palm, he said, already regretting having come. You came so that you could learn about your dreams, said the old woman. And dreams are the language of God. When he speaks in our language, I can interpret what he has said. But if he speaks in the language of the soul, it is only you who can understand. But whichever it is, I'm going to charge you for the consultation. A trick, the boy thought. But he decided to take a chance. A shepherd always takes his chances with wolves and with drought. And that's what makes a shepherd's life exciting. I have had the same dream twice, he said. I dreamed that I was in a field with my sheep, when a child appeared and began to play with the animals. And suddenly, the child took me by the hand and transported me to the Egyptian pyramids.
What?
Then, at the Egyptian pyramids, he said the last 3 words slowly so that the old woman would understand. The child said to me, "If you come here, you will find a hidden treasure." But just as the child was about to show me the exact location, I woke up. Both times. The woman was silent for some time. Then she again took his hands and studied them carefully.
Yo, Boozy, how old are you, bro?
"I'm not going to charge you anything now," she said. "But I want 1/10 of the treasure if you find it." The boy laughed out of happiness. "Well, interpret the dream," he said. "It's a dream in the language of the world. I can interpret it, but the interpretation is very difficult. That's why I feel that I deserve a part of what you find.
I think I need a taller seat.
This is my interpretation. You must go to the pyramids in Egypt. I have never heard of them, but if it was a child who showed them to you, they exist. There you will find a treasure that will make you a rich man." The boy was surprised and then irritated. He didn't need to seek out the old woman for this. But then he remembered that he wasn't going to have to pay anything. "I didn't need to waste my time just for this," he said. "I told you that your dream was a difficult one. It's the simple things in life that are the most extraordinary. Only wise men are able to understand them. And since I am not wise, I have had to learn other arts, such as the reading of palms." "Well, how am I going to get to Egypt?" "I only interpret dreams. I don't know how to turn them into reality." "And what if I never get to Egypt?" "Then I don't get paid." It wouldn't be the first time." And the woman told the boy to leave, saying she had already wasted too much time with him. So the boy was disappointed. He decided that he would never again believe in dreams. He went to the market for something to eat. He traded his book for one that was thicker and found a bench in the plaza where he could sample the new wine he had bought. The day was hot and the wine was refreshing. His sheep were at the gates of the city in a stable that belonged to a friend. He decided to wait until the sun had sunk a bit lower in the sky before following his flock back through the fields. 3 days from now, he would be with a merchant's daughter. He started to read the book he had bought. On the very first page, it described a burial ceremony, and the names of the people involved were very difficult to pronounce. If he ever wrote a book, he thought, he would present one person at a time so that the reader wouldn't have to worry about memorizing a lot of names. When he was finally able to concentrate on what he was reading, he liked the book better. The burial was on a snowy day, and he welcomed the feeling of being cold. As he read on, an old man sat down at his side and tried to strike up a conversation. "What are they doing?" the old man asked, pointing at the people in the plaza. "Working," the boy answered dryly, making it look as if he wanted to concentrate on his reading. But the old man persisted in his attempt to strike up a conversation. He said that he was tired and thirsty and asked if he might have a sip of the boy's wine. The boy offered his bottle, hoping that the old man would leave him alone. But the old man wanted to talk, and he asked the boy what book he was reading. The boy was tempted to be rude and moved to another bench, but his father had taught him to be respectful of the elderly. So he held out the book to the man for 2 reasons. First, that he himself wasn't sure how to pronounce the title. And second, that if the old man didn't know how to read, he would probably feel ashamed and decide of his own accord to change benches. Said the old man, looking at all sides of the book as if it were some strange object. "This is an important book, but it's really irritating." The boy was shocked. The old man knew how to read and had already read the book. And if the book was irritating, as the old man had said, the boy still had time to change it for another. It's a book that says the same thing almost all the other books in the world say, continued the old man. It describes people's inability to choose their own destinies, and it ends up saying that everyone believes the world's greatest lie. What's the world's greatest lie? The boy asked, completely surprised. It's this, that at a certain point in our lives, we lose control of what's happening to us, and our lives become controlled by fate. That's the world's greatest lie. That's never happened to me, the boy said. They wanted me to be a priest, but I decided to become a shepherd. Much better, said the old man, because you really like to travel. He knew what I was thinking, the boy said to himself. The boy noticed that the man's clothing was strange. He looked like an Arab, which was not unusual in those parts. Africa was only a few hours from Tarifa. One had only to cross the narrow straits by boat. Where are you from? The boy asked. From many places. No one can be from many places, the boy said. I'm a shepherd, and I have been to many places, but I come from only one place, from a city near an ancient castle. That's where I was born. Well then, we could say that I was born in Salem. The boy didn't know where Salem was, but he didn't want to ask, fearing that he would appear ignorant. So, what is Salem like? He asked, trying to get some sort of clue. It's like it always has been. No clue yet. And what do you do in Salem? He insisted. What do I do in Salem? The old man laughed. Well, I'm the king of Salem. People say strange things, the boy thought. Sometimes they say things that are so strange that you don't know how to continue the conversation. My name is Melchizedek, said the old man. How many sheep do you have? Enough, said the boy. He could see that the old man wanted to know more about his life. Well then, we've got a problem. I can't help you if you feel you've got enough sheep. The boy was getting irritated. He wasn't asking for help. It was the old man who had asked for a drink of his wine and had started the conversation. Give me my book, the boy said. I have to go and gather my sheep and get going. Give me 1/10 of your sheep, said the old man, and I'll tell you how to find the hidden treasure. The boy remembered his dream, and suddenly everything was clear to him. The old woman hadn't charged him anything, but the old man, maybe he was her husband, was going to find a way to get much more money in exchange for information about something that didn't even exist. The old man was probably a gypsy too. But before the boy could say anything, the old man leaned over, picked up a stick, and began to write in the sand of the plaza. Something bright reflected from the old man's chest with such intensity that the boy was momentarily blinded. With a movement that was too quick for someone his age, the man covered whatever it was with his cape. When his vision returned to normal, the boy was able to read what the old man had written in the sand. There, in the sand of the plaza of that small city, the boy read the names of his father and his mother and the name of the seminary he had attended. He read the name of the merchant's daughter, which he hadn't even known, and he read things he had never told anyone. What was going on? Are you really the king of Salem? The boy asked, awed and embarrassed. Why would a king be talking with a shepherd? For several reasons. But let us say that the most important is that you have succeeded in discovering your destiny. The boy didn't know what a person's destiny was. It's what you have always wanted to accomplish. Everyone, when they are young, knows what their destiny is. At that point in their lives, everything is clear and everything is possible. They are not afraid to dream and to yearn for everything they would like to see happen to them in their lives. But as time passes, a mysterious force begins to convince them that it will be impossible for them to realize their destiny. It's a force that appears to be negative, but actually shows you how to realize your destiny. It prepares your spirit and your will, because there is one great truth on this planet. Whoever you are, or whatever it is that you do, when you really want something, it's because that desire originated in the soul of the universe. It's your mission on Earth. Even when all you want to do is travel? Or marry the daughter of a textile merchant? Yes. Or even search for treasure. The soul of the world is nourished by people's happiness, and also by unhappiness, envy, and jealousy. To realize one's destiny is a person's only real obligation. All things are one. And when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. Why do you tend a flock of sheep? He asked. Because I like to travel. The old man pointed to a baker standing in his shop window at one corner of the plaza. When he was a child, that man wanted to travel too. But he decided first to buy his bakery and put some money aside. He should have decided to become a shepherd, the boy said. Well, he thought about that, the old man said. But bakers are more important people than shepherds. Bakers have homes, while shepherds sleep out in the open. Parents would rather see their children marry bakers than shepherds. The boy felt a pang in his heart, thinking about the merchant's daughter. There was surely a baker in her town. The old man continued. In the long run, what people think about shepherds and bakers becomes more important for them than their own destinies. The old man leafed through the book and fell to reading a page he came to. The boy waited, and then interrupted the old man just as he himself had been interrupted. Why are you telling me all this? Because you are trying to realize your destiny. And you are at the point where you're about to give it all up. And that's when you always appear on the scene? Not always in this way, but I always appear in one form or another. Sometimes I appear in the form of a solution or a good idea. At other times, at a crucial moment, I make it easier for things to happen. There are other things I do too, but most of the time people don't realize I've done them. The boy reminded the old man that he had said something about hidden treasure. Treasure is uncovered by the force of flowing water, and it is buried by the same currents, said the old man. If you want to learn about your own treasure, you will have to give me 1/10 of your flock. What about 1/10 of my treasure? The old man looked disappointed. If you start out by promising what you don't even have yet, you'll lose your desire to work toward getting it. The boy told him that he had already promised to give 1/10 of his treasure to the gypsy. Gypsies are experts at getting people to do that, sighed the old man. In any case, it's good that you've learned that everything in life has its price. This is what the warriors of the light try to teach. The old man returned the book to the boy. Tomorrow, at this same time, bring me 1/10 of your flock, and I will tell you how to find the hidden treasure. Good afternoon. And he vanished around the corner of the plaza. The boy began again to read his book, but he was no longer able to concentrate. He was tense and upset because he knew that the old man was right.
Wait a minute. In June what? You a Gemini? Oh shit. Motherfucker said his birthday in June. Yeah, what day your birthday is, man? Cancer. Oh, you to the end of the month. Yeah. Yeah, the end, yeah. My birthday June the 2nd. Oh yeah, them good summer babies. You know what I'm saying? Parents been humping in the wintertime when it was cold. All hunch up in the house and shit. Then that summertime come, pop, pop, surprise, bitches. God damn it. Yes, sir. Birthday right in the middle of the year. I love that. I love my birthday, yo. Summertime, especially back home, South Carolina. Man, June, phew, man, it's hot. Everybody grilling out, cooking out, going to the beach, the water parks. You know what I'm saying? Someone be popping, yo. Then, birthday, ooh. Summertime birthday.
He began to wander through the city and found himself at the gates. There was a small building there with a window at which people bought tickets to Africa. And he knew that Egypt was in Africa. "Can I help you?" asked the man behind the window. Maybe tomorrow," said the boy, moving away. If he sold just one of his sheep, he'd have enough to get to the other shore of the strait. The idea frightened him. While standing at the ticket window, the boy had remembered his flock and decided he should go back to being a shepherd. He decided to return to his friend's stable by the longest route possible. As he walked past the city's castle, he interrupted his return and climbed the stone ramp that led to the top of the wall. From there, he could see Africa in the distance. Someone had once told him that it was from there that the Moors had come, to occupy all of Spain. He could see almost the entire city from where he sat, including the plaza where he had talked with the old man. Curse the moment I met that old man, he thought. He had come to the town only to find a woman who could interpret his dream. Neither the woman nor the old man were at all impressed by the fact that he was a shepherd. They were solitary individuals who no longer believed in things and didn't understand that shepherds become attached to their sheep. He knew everything about each member of his flock. He knew which ones were lame, which one was to give birth 2 months from now, and which were the laziest. He knew how to shear them and how to slaughter them. If he ever decided to leave them, they would suffer. The wind began to pick up. He knew that wind. People called it the Levanter, because on it, the Moors had come from the Levant, at the eastern end of the Mediterranean. The Levanter increased in intensity. Here I am, between my flock and my treasure, the boy thought. He had to choose between something he had become accustomed to and something he wanted to have. There was also the merchant's daughter, but she wasn't as important as his flock because she didn't depend on him. Maybe she didn't even remember him. He was sure that it made no difference to her on which day he appeared. For her, every day was the same. And when each day is the same as the next, it's because people fail to recognize the good things that happen in their lives every day that the sun rises. The boy thought, I left my father, my mother, and the town castle behind. They have gotten used to my being away, and so have I. The sheep will get used to my not being there too. The Levanter was still getting stronger, and he felt its force on his face. That wind had brought the Moors, yes, but it had also brought the smell of the desert and of veiled women. It had brought with it the sweat and the dreams of men who had once left to search for the unknown and for gold and adventure and for the pyramids. The boy felt jealous of the freedom of the wind and saw that he could have the same freedom. There was nothing to hold him back except himself. The sheep, the merchant's daughter, and the fields of Andalusia were only steps along the way to his destiny. The next day, the boy met the old man at noon. He brought 6 sheep with him. "I'm surprised," the boy said. "My friend bought all the other sheep immediately. He said that he had always dreamed of being a shepherd and that it was a good omen." "That's the way it always is," said the old man. "It's called the principle of favorability. When you play cards the first time, you're almost sure to win. Beginner's luck." "Why is that?" "Because there is a force that wants you to realize your destiny. It whets your appetite with a taste of success." "Where is the treasure?" he asked. "It's in Egypt, near the pyramids." The boy was startled. The old woman had said the same thing, but she hadn't charged him anything. "In order to find the treasure, you will have to follow the omens. God has prepared a path for everyone to follow. You just have to read the omens that he has left for you." Before the boy could reply, a butterfly appeared and fluttered between him and the old man. He remembered something his grandfather had once told him, that butterflies were a good omen, like crickets and expectations, like lizards and 4-leaf clovers. "That's right," said the old man, able to read the boy's thoughts. "Just as your grandfather taught you. These are good omens." The old man opened his cape, and the boy was struck by what he saw. The old man wore a breastplate of heavy gold covered with precious stones. The boy recalled the brilliance he had noticed on the previous day. He really was a king. He must be disguised to avoid encounters with thieves. "Take these," said the old man, holding out a white stone and a black stone that had been embedded at the center of the breastplate. "They are called Urim and Thummim. The black signifies yes, and the white, no. When you are unable to read the omens, they will help you to do so. Always ask an objective question. But if you can, try to make your own decisions. The treasure is at the pyramids. That you already knew. But I had to insist on the payment of 6 sheep because I helped you to make your decision." The boy put the stones in his pouch. From then on, he would make his own decisions. "Don't forget that everything you deal with is only one thing and nothing else. And don't forget the language of omens. And above all, don't forget to follow your destiny through to its conclusion." The old man looked at the boy, and with his hands held together made several strange gestures over the boy's head. Then, taking his 6 sheep, he walked away. How strange Africa is, thought the boy. He was sitting in a bar very much like the other bars he had seen along the narrow streets of Tangier. Some men were smoking from a gigantic pipe that they passed from one to the other. In just a few hours, he had seen men walking hand in hand, women with their faces covered, and priests that climbed to the tops of towers and chanted as everyone about him went to their knees and placed their foreheads on the ground. A practice of infidels, he said to himself, feeling scared and terribly alone. The infidels had an evil look about them. Besides this, in the rush of his travels, he had forgotten a detail. Just one detail, which could keep him from his treasure for a long time. Only Arabic was spoken in this country. The owner of the bar approached him, and the boy pointed to a drink that had been served at the next table. It turned out to be a bitter tea. The boy preferred wine. But he didn't need to worry about that right now. What he had to be concerned about was his treasure and how he was going to go about getting it. The sale of his sheep had left him with enough money in his pouch, and the boy knew that in money there was magic. Whoever has money is never really alone. Before long, maybe in just a few days, he would be at the pyramids. An old man with a breastplate of gold wouldn't have lied just to acquire 6 sheep. The old man had spoken about signs and omens, and as the boy sipped his tea, he thought about omens. The tea seemed less bitter. "Who are you?" he heard a voice ask him in Spanish. The boy was relieved. He was thinking about omens, and someone had appeared. "How come you speak Spanish?" he asked. The new arrival was a young man in Western dress, but the color of his skin suggested he was from this city. He was about the same age and height as the boy. "Almost everyone here speaks Spanish," he said. "We're only 2 hours from Spain." The boy told him then that he needed to get to the pyramids. He almost began to tell about his treasure, but decided not to do so. If he did, it was possible that the Arab would want a part of it as payment for taking him there. He remembered what the old man had said about offering something you didn't even have yet. "I'd like you to take me to the pyramids if you can. I can pay you to serve as my guide." "Do you have any idea how to get there?" the newcomer asked. The boy noticed that the owner of the bar stood nearby, listening attentively to their conversation. He felt uneasy at the man's presence, but he had found the guide and didn't want to miss out on an opportunity. "You have to cross the entire Sahara Desert," said the young man. "And to do that, you need money. I need to know whether you have enough." The boy thought it a strange question, but he trusted in the old man who had said that when you really want something, the universe always conspires in your favor. He took his money from his pouch and showed it to the young man. The owner of the bar came over and looked as well. The 2 men exchanged some words in Arabic, and the bar owner seemed irritated. "Let's get out of here," said the new arrival. "He wants us to leave." The boy was relieved. He got up to pay the bill, but the owner grabbed him and began to speak to him in an angry stream of words. The boy was strong and wanted to retaliate, but he was in a foreign country. His new friend pushed the owner aside and pulled the boy outside with him. "He wanted your money," he said. "Tangier is not like the rest of Africa. This is a port, and every port has its thieves." The boy trusted his new friend. He had helped him out in a dangerous situation. He took out his money and counted it. "We could get to the pyramids by tomorrow," said the other, taking the money. "But I have to buy 2 camels." They walked together through the narrow streets of Tangier. Everywhere there were stalls with items for sale. They reached the center of a large plaza where the market was held. There were thousands of people there, arguing, selling, and buying. There were vegetables for sale amongst daggers and carpets displayed alongside tobacco. But the boy never took his eye off his new friend. After all, he had all his money. He thought about asking him to give it back, but decided that would be unfriendly. He knew nothing about the customs of the strange land he was in. "I'll just watch him," he said to himself. He knew he was stronger than his new friend. Suddenly, there in the midst of all that confusion, the boy saw the most beautiful sword he had ever seen. The scabbard was embossed in silver, and the handle was black and encrusted with precious stones. The boy promised himself that when he returned from Egypt, he would buy that sword. "Ask the owner of that stall how much the sword costs," he said to his friend. Then he realized that he had been distracted for a few moments looking at the sword. His heart squeezed as if his chest had suddenly compressed it. All around him was the market with people coming and going, shouting and buying, and the aroma of strange foods. But nowhere could he find his new companion. The boy wanted to believe that his friend had simply become separated from him by accident. He decided to stay right there and await his return. As he waited, a priest climbed to the top of a nearby tower and began his chant. Everyone in the market fell to their knees, touched their foreheads to the ground, and took up the chant. Then, like a colony of worker ants, they dismantled their stalls and left.
Hey!
The sun began its departure as well. The boy watched it through its trajectory for some time until it was hidden behind the white houses surrounding the plaza. He recalled that when the sun had risen that morning, he was on another continent, still a shepherd with his 60 sheep and looking forward to meeting with a girl. That morning, he had known everything that was going to happen to him as he walked through the familiar fields. But now, as the sun began to set, he was in a different country, a stranger in a strange land where he couldn't even speak the language. He was no longer a shepherd, and he had nothing, not even the money to return and start everything over. All this happened between sunrise and sunset, the boy thought. He was feeling sorry for himself and lamenting the fact that his life could have changed so suddenly and drastically. He was so ashamed that he wanted to cry. He had never even wept in front of his own sheep. But the marketplace was empty, and he was far from home. So he wept. He wept because God was unfair, and because this was the way God repaid those who believed in their dreams. He thought, when I had my sheep, I was happy, and I made those around me happy. People saw me coming and welcomed me. But now I'm sad and alone. I'm going to become bitter and distrustful of people because one person betrayed me. I'm going to hate those who have found their treasure because I never found mine. And I'm going to hold on to what little I have because I'm too insignificant to conquer the world. He opened his pouch to see what was left of his possessions. Maybe there was a bit left of the sandwich he had eaten on the ship. But all he found was the heavy book, his jacket, and the 2 stones the old man had given him. As he looked at the stones, he felt relieved for some reason. He had exchanged 6 sheep for 2 precious stones that had been taken from a gold breastplate. He could sell the stones and buy a return ticket. But this time I'll be smarter, the boy thought, removing them from the pouch so he could put them in his pocket. This was a port town, and the only truthful thing his friend had told him was that port towns are full of thieves. Now he understood why the owner of the bar had been so upset. He was trying to tell him not to trust that man. I'm like everyone else, he thought. I see the world in terms of what I would like to see happen, not what actually does. He ran his fingers slowly over the stones, sensing their temperature and feeling their surfaces. They were his treasure. Just handling them made him feel better. They reminded him of the old man. When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it, he had said. The boy was trying to understand the truth of what the old man had said. There he was in the empty marketplace, without a cent to his name and with not a sheep to guard through the night. But the stones were proof that he had met with a king who knew of the boy's past. They're called Urim and Thummim, and they can help you to read the omens. The boy put the stones back in the pouch and decided to do an experiment. The old man had said to ask very clear questions, and to do that the boy had to know what he wanted. So he asked if the old man's blessing was still with him. He took out one of the stones. It was yes. Am I going to find my treasure? He asked. He stuck his hand into the pouch and felt around for one of the stones. As he did so, both of them pushed through a hole in the pouch and fell to the ground. The boy had never even noticed that there was a hole in the pouch. He knelt down to find Urim and Thummim and put them back in the pouch. But as he saw them lying there on the ground, another phrase came to his mind. Learn to recognize omens and follow them, the old king had said. An omen? The boy smiled to himself. He picked up the 2 stones and put them back in his pouch. He didn't consider mending the hole. The stones could fall through any time they wanted. He had learned that there were certain things one shouldn't ask about, so as not to flee from one's own destiny. I promised that I would make my own decisions, he said to himself. But the stones had told him that the old man was still with him, and that made him feel more confident. He looked around at the empty plaza again, feeling less desperate than before. This wasn't a strange place. It was a new one. He realized that he had to choose between thinking of himself as the poor victim of a thief and as an adventurer in quest of his treasure. I'm an adventurer looking for treasure, he said to himself. The boy was shaken into wakefulness by someone. He had fallen asleep in the middle of the marketplace, and life in the plaza was about to resume. Looking around, he sought his sheep, and then realized that he was in a new world. But instead of being saddened, he was happy. He no longer had to seek out food and water for the sheep. He could go in search of his treasure instead. He had not a cent in his pocket, but he had faith. He had decided the night before that he would be as much an adventurer as the ones he had admired in books. He walked slowly through the market. The merchants were assembling their stalls, and the boy helped a candy seller to do his. The candy seller had a smile on his face. He was happy, aware of what his life was about, and ready to begin a day's work. This candy merchant isn't making candy so that later he can travel or marry a shopkeeper's daughter. He's doing it because it's what he wants to do, thought the boy. He realized that he could do the same thing the old man had done, sense whether a person was near or far from his destiny, just by looking at them. It's easy, and yet I've never done it before, he thought. When the stall was assembled, the candy seller offered the boy the first sweet he had made for the day. The boy thanked him, ate it, and went on his way. When he had gone only a short distance, he realized that while they were erecting the stall, one of them had spoken Arabic and the other Spanish, and they had understood each other perfectly well. There must be a language that doesn't depend on words, the boy thought. I've already had that experience with my sheep, and now it's happening with people. All things are one, the old man had said. The crystal merchant awoke with the day and felt the same anxiety that he felt every morning. He had been in the same place for 30 years, a shop at the top of a hilly street where few customers passed. Now it was too late to change anything. The only thing he had ever learned to do was to buy and sell crystal glassware. There had been a time when many people knew of his shop. Arab merchants, French and English geologists, German soldiers who were always well-heeled. In those days it had been wonderful to be selling crystal, and he had thought how he would become rich and have beautiful women at his side as he grew older. But as time passed, Tangier had changed. The nearby city of Ceuta had grown faster than Tangier, and business had fallen off. Neighbors moved away, and there remained only a few small shops on the hill. And no one was going to climb the hill just to browse through a few small shops. He spent the entire morning observing the infrequent comings and goings in the street. He had done this for years and knew the schedule of everyone who passed. But just before lunchtime, a boy stopped in front of the shop. He was dressed normally, but the practiced eyes of the crystal merchant could see that the boy had no money to spend. Nevertheless, the merchant decided to delay his lunch for a few minutes until the boy moved on. A card hanging in the doorway announced that several languages were spoken in the shop. The boy saw a man appear behind the counter. "I can clean up the glasses in the window if you want," said the boy. "The way they look now, nobody's going to want to buy them." The man looked at him without responding. "In exchange, you could give me something to eat." The man still said nothing. and the boy sensed that he was going to have to make a decision. In his pouch, he had his jacket. He certainly wasn't going to need it in the desert. Taking the jacket out, he began to clean the glasses. In half an hour, he had cleaned all the glasses in the window, and as he was doing so, 2 customers had entered the shop and bought some crystal. When he had completed the cleaning, he asked the man for something to eat. "Let's go and have some lunch," said the crystal merchant. He put a sign on the door, and they went to a small cafe nearby. As they sat down at the only table in the place, the crystal merchant laughed. "You didn't have to do any cleaning," he said. "The Koran requires me to feed a hungry person." "Well, then why did you let me do it?" the boy asked. "Because the crystal was dirty. Both you and I needed to cleanse our minds of negative thoughts." When they had eaten, the merchant turned to the boy and said, "I'd like you to work in my shop. 2 customers came in today while you were working, and that's a good omen." People talk a lot about omens, thought the shepherd, but they really don't know what they're saying. Just as I hadn't realized that for so many years I had been speaking a language without words to my sheep. "Do you want to go to work for me?" the merchant asked. "I can work for the rest of today," the boy answered. "I'll work all night until dawn, and I'll clean every piece of crystal in your shop. And in return, I need money to get to Egypt tomorrow." The merchant laughed. "Even if you clean my crystal for an entire year, even if you earned a good commission selling every piece, you would still have to borrow money to get to Egypt. There are thousands of kilometers of desert between here and there." There was a moment of silence so profound that it seemed the city was asleep. No sound from the bazaars, no arguments among the merchants, no men climbing to the towers to chant. No hope, no adventure, no old kings or destinies, no treasure, and no pyramids. It was as if the world had fallen silent because the boy's soul had. The merchant looked anxiously at the boy. All the joy he had seen that morning had suddenly disappeared. "I can give you the money you need to get back to your country, my son," said the crystal merchant. "I'll work for you," he said. And after another long silence, he added, "I need money to buy some sheep." The boy had been working for the crystal merchant for almost a month, and he could see that it wasn't exactly the kind of job that would make him happy. The merchant spent the entire day mumbling behind the counter, telling the boy to be careful with the pieces and not to break anything. But he stayed with the job because the merchant, although he was an old grouch, treated him fairly. The boy received a good commission for each piece he sold and had already been able to put some money aside. That morning, he had done some calculating. If he continued to work every day as he had been, he would need a whole year to be able to buy some sheep. "I'd like to build a display case for the crystal," the boy said to the merchant. "We could place it outside and attract those people who pass at the bottom of the hill." I've never had one before," the merchant answered. "People will pass by and bump into it, and pieces will be broken. Well, when I took my sheep through the field, some of them might have died if we had come upon a snake. But that's the way life is with sheep and with shepherds." The merchant turned to a customer who wanted 3 crystal glasses. He was selling better than ever, as if time had turned back to the old days when the street had been one of Tangier's major attractions. "Business has really improved," he said to the boy after the customer had left. "I'm doing much better, and soon you'll be able to return to your sheep. Why ask more out of life?" "Because we have to respond to omens," the boy said. Then he regretted what he had said, because the merchant had never met the king. But the merchant understood what the boy had said. The boy's very presence in the shop was an omen, and as time passed and money was pouring into the cash drawer, he had no regrets about having hired the boy. "Why did you want to get to the pyramids?" he asked, to get away from the business of the display. "Because I've always heard about them," the boy answered, saying nothing about his dream. The treasure was now nothing but a painful memory, and he tried to avoid thinking about it. I don't know anyone around here who would want to cross the desert just to see the pyramids, said the merchant. They're just a pile of stones. You could build one in your backyard.
Yeah.
You've never had dreams of travel, said the boy, turning to wait on a customer who had entered the shop. 2 days later, the merchant spoke to the boy about the display. Why did you think we should have the display? He wanted to know. I want to get back to my sheep faster. We have to take advantage when luck is on our side and do as much to help it as it is doing to help us. It's called the principle of favorability, or beginner's luck. The merchant was silent for a few moments. Then he said, 2 days ago you said that I had never dreamed of travel. But one of the obligations of every Muslim is a pilgrimage. We are obliged at least once in our life to visit the holy city of Mecca. Mecca is a lot farther away than the pyramids. When I was young, all I wanted to do was put together enough money to start this shop. I thought that someday I'd be rich and could go to Mecca. I began to make some money, but I could never bring myself to leave someone in charge of the shop. The crystals are delicate things. At the same time, people were passing my shop all the time, heading for Mecca. Some of them were rich pilgrims traveling in caravans with servants and camels, but most of the people making the pilgrimage were poorer than I. All who went there were happy at having done so. They placed the symbols of the pilgrimage on the doors of their houses. Well, why don't you go to Mecca now? Asked the boy. Because it's the thought of Mecca that keeps me alive. That's what helps me face these days that are all the same. These mute crystals on the shelves and lunch and dinner at that same horrible cafe. You dream about your sheep and the pyramids, but you're different from me because you want to realize your dreams. I just want to dream about Mecca. That day, the merchant gave the boy permission to build a display. Not everyone can see his dreams come true in the same way. 2 more months passed, and the shelf brought many customers into the crystal shop. The boy estimated that if he worked for 6 more months, he could return to Spain and buy 60 sheep and yet another 60. In less than a year, he would have doubled his flock, and he would be able to do business with the Arabs because he was now able to speak their strange language. Since that morning in the marketplace, he had never again made use of Urim and Thummim, because Egypt was now just as distant a dream for him as was Mecca for the merchant. Anyway, the boy had become happy in his work, and thought all the time about the day when he would disembark at Tarifa as a winner. You must always know what it is that you want, the old king had said. The boy knew and was now working toward it. Maybe it was his treasure to have wound up in that strange land, met up with a thief, and doubled the size of his flock without spending a cent. He was proud of himself. He had learned some important things, like how to deal in crystal, and about the language without words, and about omens. One afternoon, he had seen a man at the top of the hill, complaining that it was impossible to find a decent place to get something to drink after such a climb. The boy, accustomed to recognizing omens, spoke to the merchant. Let's sell tea to the people who climb the hill. Lots of places sell tea around here, the merchant said. But we could sell tea in crystal glasses. The people will enjoy the tea and want to buy the glasses. I have been told that beauty is the great seducer of men. The merchant didn't respond, but that afternoon, after saying his prayers and closing the shop, he invited the boy to sit with him and share his hookah, that strange pipe used by the Arabs. I've had this shop for 30 years, the old merchant said. If we serve tea in crystal, the shop is going to expand, and then I'll have to change my way of life. Well, isn't that good? No, I'm already used to the way things are. The shop is exactly the size I always wanted it to be. I don't want anything else in life. But you are forcing me to look at wealth and at the horizons I have never known. Now that I have seen them and now that I see how immense my possibilities are, I'm going to feel worse than I did before you arrived. Because I know the things I should be able to accomplish, and I don't want to do so. They went on smoking the pipe for a while as the sun began to set. Maktoba, the merchant said finally. What does that mean? Oh, you would have to have been born an Arab to understand, he answered. But in your language, it would be something like, it is written. And as he smothered the coals in the hookah, he told the boy that he could begin to sell tea in the crystal glasses. Sometimes there's just no way to hold back the river.
Alright guys, I think we're gonna get out of here.
The men climbed the hill, and they were tired when they reached the top. But there they saw a crystal shop that offered refreshing mint tea. They went in to drink the tea, which was served in beautiful crystal glasses. My wife never thought of this, said one, and he bought some crystal. He was entertaining guests that night, and the guests would be impressed by the beauty of the glassware. A second man remarked that tea was always more delicious when it was served in crystal, because the aroma was retained. Before long, the news spread, and a great many people began to climb the hill to see the shop that was doing something new in a trade that was so old. Other shops were open that served tea in crystal, but they weren't at the top of a hill, and they had little business. Eventually, the merchant had to hire 2 more employees. He began to import enormous quantities of tea, along with his crystal, and his shop was sought out by men and women with a thirst for things new. And in that way, the months passed. The boy awoke before dawn. It had been 11 months and 9 days since he had first set foot on the African continent. He dressed in his Arabian clothing of white linen, bought especially for this day.
And there's a lot
He
of
put his head
foliage
cloth
back
in
there,
place and
so
secured it with a ring made of camel skin. Wearing his new sandals, he descended the stair.
started with the almost black background, and then some terracotta green, the darker green, and then slowly just building up the layers of green until I eventually get to those brighter highlights, which are actually kind of yellowish. So it'll take a minute to get there. Oh my god, the foliage. I think it's gonna look nice when it's done though. So you just gotta slowly build your colors up. Don't try to rush them too fast. Hey guys, this was an after work stream, so you already know I'm only trying to put an hour in after work. Come on, PlayStation camera, don't start that shit. Come on, just stay like that. There you go, perfect frame. So yeah, just trying to work my way and fill in the foliage. Probably take like a couple of days to get it to where I want to look. And once I get the background filled in, and then I'll apply a third layer of paint to their skin tones, start adding highlights to their hair, and still need to work on his jeans and stuff. So there's still a lot to go in this painting. Like I said, I'll probably paint the entire canvas over at least one more time. And I got some ideas. I'm going to do another series of self-portraits. It's probably going to be 3 paintings. Buttery grits. You know what I'm saying? Shit, I'm from South Carolina, bruh. Grits every morning for breakfast. Buttery grits, cheese grits, grits and eggs, fish and grits, shrimp and grits. You know what I'm saying? Just grits with salt and pepper. And then I used to get fancy with that shit. Take a chicken bouillon cube, right? I season that shit like meat, yo, like gravy grits, yo. Put a bouillon cube in the water, throw some oregano, a little bit of curry powder up in there, some goddamn thyme, a little bit of seasoning salt. Mix your grits in that shit, man. God damn. South Carolina, yes sir. You know what I'm saying? Goddamn grits and some ball peanuts, bitch. You don't think I know about that shit, boy? You don't think I know you eat ball peanuts? Motherfucker be eating pickled eggs? Oh, yeah, I don't know about that South Carolina shit, man. I'm in Pennsylvania. Motherfucker be like, a boiled peanut? I'm like, you gotta be from where I'm at, man. Them shits in every gas station. I don't give a fuck where you go. Every gas station got that same little pot. You walk, hey, if I go in the gas station, y'all ain't got peanuts, I ain't buying shit from y'all. I ain't buying no gas from y'all or nothing. Y'all ain't got no peanuts? Fuck wrong with y'all? Y'all must be some Arabs. No offense, not racist or anything, but you obviously not from South Carolina. Telling you. They something about that state, yo. The motherfucking home state. I'm just trying to blow a little bit before I go downstairs. So I don't get my girl home. But, oh yeah, my next series of paintings, I'm gonna tell you guys right now, man. I might not even stream them shits, yo. I might do a motherfucking some secret projects that nobody don't see but me until they done. So if I go dead off the camera for a couple months, y'all already know what time it is. I'm working on some extra shit. I'm not sure yet, because a lot of people do like to watch the art, and I enjoy showing the art, but I don't know. I think I want to do a piece that nobody don't see before it's done. I really haven't done that shit in a long time. Ever since I started streaming, because before then nobody would see it. But since I stream all the time. You know what I'm saying? I've gotten used to streaming. There are occasions where I'm in here and I don't stream, but I mean that's because like right now, if I don't stream this tomorrow at all and I just work on it for 5 hours, it's not a big deal because everybody's already seen it before. You know what I'm saying? So there's sometimes I don't turn on the camera. It's not very often because I do like chilling with you guys and shit. So damn near every time I come here, I turn the camera on. But sometimes I'll come here on the dolo. Bruh, matter of fact, thanks for reminding me. I need to check that shit now and see if I'm off restriction yet. I tried a couple days ago, like the other PlayStation downstairs, the one that's banned. I just took that shit from out of here, put that one downstairs, and put the good one up here. But I tried a couple days ago downstairs and tried to stream from YouTube, and that shit cut me out. I was gonna wait like a week or so. I know it's coming up soon, man. It's March, right? They said 90 days. That shit happened in like. Let me see. I'm gonna check right now. What date? What date was the last time I streamed on my other channel? It don't really give an exact date. It just says 2 months ago. So the last video uploaded 2 months ago. It seemed like it been longer than that, yo. That's 60 days. That's what I'm thinking. Like at the end of this month. At the end of this month, I might be off punishment.
So me, Moss, Henry, MB.
It's weird looking at
It's a
myself
fucking
sometimes.
cycle. Just imagine if all of us was in the same
2 months
room.
ago, I'm wearing the same shirt. Oh, that's not the same shirt. Dude, just smoking. What is? That's awkward. I'm watching myself. I better cut this shit out now. I'm about to trip. That's kind of trippy to me for some reason. Anyway, guys, I'm about to go, man. Let me turn off everything. Bluetooth speaker off. Space heater off. I never turned the laptop on to start with. Put my phone settings back to normal. One more day of work, guys. One more day. I can do this shit. Just 12 more hours. Just 12 more hours, Trap. Just hang in there. Maybe so. You don't know how difficult it is to get through a day of work without slapping a motherfucker for saying something stupid. I swear. Let me go eat some dinner, guys. Peace. Till next time. Wrong button. Try this again.